The presentation. Oh, gracious God, we give you thanks for the joy of marking the milestones in our lives and of always going deeper as we seek to ground our lives in you as our source and as our destination. So give us open minds and hearts as we consider together this evening the gift of aging as well as the opportunities of this season of our lives. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay. The art of aging well and having a meaningful life. Tonight is the power of belief, reaching beyond yourself. Got a quote from Job. Is not wisdom found among the aged? Does not long life bring understanding? I've read this a couple of times. I'm stumbling through it. In terms of our outline, we're going to look at the power of the mind, then looking at life's experience and how they're created through thought, beliefs and emotions, and then we're going to look at the power of belief, get into some specifics there, and then this healing power within, and the importance of nurturing, and finally is what makes us happy. So let's take the power of the mind first. About 3-4 years ago, there was an article had a series on how your mind can heal the body, and it is looking at the power of belief and the healing and the sort of the biology of belief. And it had a number of sub-articles in it, the way new ways to beat the blues, 3 kinds of happiness. This goes on, but it sort of set the stage about the idea of the mind is a powerful entity in terms of how we heal and age. Let's look at the power of the 2 minds. And again, I apologize for the slide. But we sort of have 2 components. We have a conscious, which represents about 10% of our mind. And then we have a subconscious component. That's 90%. So that's where most of the action is taking place. It involves our beliefs, our emotions, habits, keep on going down. So this is where most of the influences come from. And this is why men do not understand women, because men are up here and women are in the emotional level. And we seem to have to, we just can't get our act together in terms of understanding each other.
What?
Don't hear that very often, do we?
And I don't think we realize how much of this is what we call subconscious. Most of our thoughts and actions are generated from this region. So how do we go about unlocking the power of the mind? One deals with our beliefs, and we'll go into this a little more later in the evening. It's important that you feed your mind with information that will change your belief. Get the right knowledge. Tap into books, people, your own experience, and this is where I think the church is very important. Discipline yourself through hard work and study. In other words, gaining knowledge doesn't come easy, and you have to become passionate about learning. So, if we look at the power of the mind, it's going to then start building on how our thoughts, beliefs, and emotions create our life experience. And again, it's hard to probably get our arms around this, but most of our life experiences are generated through what we think, how we feel, and what we believe. And if we look at these, how they impact our life, we sort of have this notion again that we believe that emotions are just part of us and they can't be changed. And this is what happens when you get a fixed mindset. You can go down the list here. Something you were born with and it's fixed. And so what we need to do is move over to this open mind, or where we have continual growth in our beliefs.
Oh, you went too fast.
Pardon?
We didn't have time to.
We have to read the rest of
Go
it.
down the list.
Assembly.
Go back.
Well, down the list,
Okay,
The
I
skills.
can't read the green.
It isn't easy to read.
the skills challenges, for a fixed mindset, skills are something you're born with.
Right.
And
Challenges.
they're fixed. Challenges are something to avoid. And we
And
tend
get
to give
feedback.
up. Yeah, we get defensive and take it personally. We're more likely to blame others or get discouraged when there are setbacks.
This is a fixed mind. This is the approach we take.
So the growth mindset, skills come from hard work. They're earned, not given. Challenges should be embraced for their value and present an opportunity to grow. And a growth mindset will make one more persistent when challenges arise. Effort is essential rather than unnecessary. It's a path to mastery rather than something you do when you're not good enough. Feedback is useful. It's something to learn from, and it's a valuable way to identify areas for improvement. Setbacks use as wake-up calls to work harder next time or work smarter. So that's really kind of a wonderful juxtaposition.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the especially when it comes to the feedback, the challenges, the necessity of effort and feedback and setbacks, we can say, well, that's just the way a person is, or we have a choice about adopting a mindset that opens us to learn from, embrace, and grow from challenges, to give it effort, to seek constructive feedback, and to see setbacks as learning opportunities.
And I think this is where friendship is important, because friends, when you start getting defensive or taking it personal, I think they can sort of blunt this and talk you through why it shouldn't be personal. And it's, again, it's a supportive support group.
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we know negative emotions and such things as anger and bitterness can negatively affect our health. These negative emotions impact the immune system. Again, complications, colds, bronchitis, irritations of the liver, kidney diseases, on down the line. So that has a major impact on our health. So, can we change the way we respond to a situation? Well, I've taken the approach here that's what we call a stimulus response. We'll start out with the simple one here, is when you touch a hot burner, you get a reaction or response, and it's very quick. And I think from that experience, you probably will not be touching the burner again. So the answer is yes, we can change the situation. And so what we've got here is a stimulus response, and this pause mode is the lag time it takes between when you get the stimulus and the response. We call this the latent period. It can be very quick, in a matter of seconds, or it can be several minutes, or it can be several hours. If someone gives you a personal insult, you may take a while to mull it over before you respond. So with this stimulus response, this pause thing is very important, because this is the place where we have the freedom to choose. We can choose how to react to this stimulus. We can get angry, or we can turn the other cheek, and it's up to us. So this stimulus response, we have a time lag here that allows us to decide how we're gonna choose what to do. So
just a comment here, go ahead, Ron.
no,
Yeah. One of the comments I would have is in the top, the hot burner, the cognitive brain doesn't have the opportunity for a pause. If you pause to think about whether that's hot enough to remove your hand or not, you'll discover that your hand already moved without your having to think about it. When our reactions to social stimuli, somebody being insulting or angry, intimidating, we do have some capacity to hit the pause button. But it takes practice.
I can tell you, when somebody cuts in front of me and driving, my response is pretty quick, like this one up here. I do.
It's called a fender bender.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
Yeah, in social,
yeah,
you
yeah.
do have the point I want to make is
Yeah.
we have a choice between what happens with a social insult
Mhm.
or physical, and how we want to respond to it.
Yeah.
Can we back up to that big chart again? Does this sort of relate to that? Keep going
Mhm.
there. Because when our natural thing is to do what our habits are in the
Mhm.
fixed mindset. And so in order to shift to the growth mindset, we have to make the best of that center, that pause
Mhm.
part, in order to get to the green.
Yeah, I think what I would underscore is without the capacity to anticipate and prepare, we stay in a fixed mindset. We continue to react automatically. And it is automatic. We are prepared as organisms to react in different ways to what we perceive to be threatening stimuli, even if they're social and not all that threatening. Once the word today is triggered. Once I'm triggered, I'm on automatic pilot.
Right.
Well, so, can we talk about the capacity to pause?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
How do you get that, Nancy?
yeah, I'm wondering.
Please
How
tell
do we
me.
get it?
I need it.
Is this
I
where,
need a longer one. I need
Yeah.
a longer pause.
is this where you're supposed to count to 10,
Yeah.
you know, type of thing?
Right.
You know, if you can't,
Take a breath. You'll notice on a lot of medical shows now, what they're doing when someone's really traumatized and panicking. The first thing they'll say is, "Look at me, look at me, look at me," because the intentional act of making eye contact with another human being alters all of those neural pathways that are on automatic pilot. When I look into the eyes of another person, another automatic response gets triggered. That is, I'm now connecting to another circuit that's in someone else's head who may have a little more presence of mind than I have. And then breathe. Take a breath. You've changed your physiology by one deep cleansing breath. 3, you've made a remarkable change in your physiological arousal to that stressful stimuli, whether it's a driver or someone about to a driver cutting in on you or someone about to crash into you. The the ability to inhibit arousal, and in fairly short terms, when there is an alarming or surprising stimulus, is what firefighter training, military training, law enforcement training, EMT training mostly consists of. How can you quickly make a decision that is not automatic? Well, you put a new automatic process in place that overrides the natural reaction, for example, to run away from a fire rather than run toward it, to use the metaphor. The disciplines that most of us know as spiritual disciplines, breathing, meditation,
Yeah.
reflection, are in some ways more ancient versions of what state-of-the-art training for emergency response personnel is all about, to put in place a corrective pattern of action that becomes automatic. It's a new habit.
One thing that helps me is just taking a deep breath.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Take a deep breath.
It just,
I took a quite a few parenting courses when we were raising our girls. And one of the things that came out of that for me was to try to anticipate situations that our girls might be coming up, something that they had never had any experience with before, and then just sort of talking through, well, if that happened, what would you do?
Yeah.
So it's not a brand new experience
Right.
when they hit it for the first time, because we've already talked through it.
Yeah.
So now they have some,
Mhm.
experience just through talking about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And if some of these things that, happen to us, if we can anticipate what might happen, we can
Yeah.
think it through before we get there.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's just kind of at that most basic level. And kids, it's really, it's fun watching little granddaughters now, kind of, yeah, I know what you told me to do, that I'm not supposed to run up to somebody with a dog and ask if I can pet their dog without asking my permission first. Now, what did you just do? Oh, yeah. I kind of blew it this time, didn't I? Yeah, but you are at least remembered what you were supposed to have done.
And
That's a
then,
start.
as you reflect back on something
Yeah.
that maybe you hadn't anticipated,
Yeah,
then you can reflect back and learn from that.
draw
and
another
keep growing.
experience. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
over in that green area too.
Right. Yeah.
but I will say, you can get as rational as you want. When somebody insults you, you still,
You go to automatic.
you sort of go into automatic, that mindset. I'm gonna get even with that SOB for some last thing I do, or, it's just, it's an automatic thing. I think you really have to work at that, even though
Yeah.
you can rationalize and talk it through before.
Yeah. Well, your little chart says it's hard work.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It is hard work.
So, we've looked at sort of the thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and let's look at this power of belief. So we're gonna get a little more specific. What we're gonna do is sort of get into the biology of belief, the positive mind, the vibes, and the positive life. And there's an excellent book, that came out 2 years ago, it's called The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lepton, Unleashing the Power of Consciousness, Matters and Miracles. And it's pretty well done. I thought it was very well done. And he goes into miracles as well as these power of the conscious mind.
Well, to define belief, are we talking about religious belief at this point, or just belief
Yeah,
in?
but-
We're gonna, yeah, it's a good question, and it's coming right up here. What is belief?
Yeah,
We're gonna define this, but it is a religious as well as it's a state of mind in which trust or confidence is placed in some person or thing. One is a belief in God, a belief in miracles, and a belief in democracy.
What
Now,
happened to belief in other people?
yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, this,
Well, that gets into faith.
those are just examples. That's
these are
not a
examples.
list of.
No, these are
of forms,
just examples. No, I'm just giving you some
Yeah.
ideas what we're talking, when we say persons or things.
Okay.
These are just examples. And then the power of beliefs is often referred to as faith, and that's where we get a little confusing. And I sort of try to divide this, separate it. Belief is used when there is some kind of evidence for believing. Faith is used when the believer is certain, even though there is no evidence or proof. So, I mean, that's what we call faith. I don't know if anybody wants to disagree with that, or but it's sort of making sure we make a distinction between the two.
I think one of the, in common parlance, certainty is very often equated with a biblical interpretation of what faith means,
Yes.
which is a false interpretation of what Scripture is. It's not certainty, it is trust, or a confidence in God.
Right.
Without being able to present a compelling rational argument to demonstrate or prove it. Faith, I've sometimes said that if we translated the word faith as trust, we would be far closer to the biblical meaning of the experience. We've too often come to equate a set of beliefs with our faith, which leads us into all kinds of both unbiblical Christian interpretation and traps of who's right, who's wrong about their belief system, rather than, is our trust in God, or are we putting our trust in our set of beliefs, which the Bible defines as idolatry. If we've chosen to believe in something and made that our basis for trust, then that still falls short of the trusting, at least trusting a transcendent God. That is, whatever I believe about God, my trust in God is where faith lies.
Taking what's printed here, you're making a difference between faith and belief.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
So, what is the impact of our belief? What I'm trying to illustrate here is what we think we are, is that our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings are all tied together. So, what we think determines what we believe. And what we believe determines how we feel, and how we feel is going to influence the way we're going to act. So they're all tied together. And if you want a take-home message, for example, you can't live a positive life with a negative mind. I mean, it's just how these things is.
Well, if I could go up to the top of that chart too, Rod, our actions influence our thoughts.
Yes.
The feedback we get from our behavior develops what is often called the confirmation bias.
Yeah.
That is, we act on the basis of beliefs and feelings that may be completely erroneous. We get good feedback from it, so we continue to think, oh, that's the very best way. Everyone ought to behave that way. And that becomes our new belief, and the feelings that grow out of that, including the feelings about those people who are now the heretics, who don't believe one should behave that way. And our actions are driven by those feelings, and by the second time around, the thought process is pretty much focused on war, or some form of elimination of the threat to our precious belief system.
I think there's a lesson here for raising kids.
Ah.
I was
Yeah.
thinking about the other night, we were playing cards at a friend's house where they have 3 large dogs and 2 cats. And the dogs were wrestling on the floor, they're in the mood to play. And instead of sending them to their separate corners or what have you, the owner rewarded them with treats as a way to try to distract them. And I thought, well, that's interesting, you're reinforcing
Reinforcing it.
bad behavior.
Yeah,
by
really good actions, folks.
Yeah. Anyway.
So why is the influence of belief so powerful? I've got 2 stories. One was this story that we've read to our kids. It's about the train, I think I can, the little train that went up the hill and pushes it.
Good.
And that has a powerful influence on kids. The other is the, I left out a word, the 4-minute mile, is all about belief. Again, back in, I think, 56, all the experts, physicians, scientists said that it's impossible to break the 4-minute mile.
Right.
And this gentleman from England, who was not the best of runners,
Roger Bannister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broke the 4-minute mile. And again, it was more than just practice. It had a power of believing he was going to be able to do it.
I think more powerful than him breaking the 4-minute mile was the fact that after he did that, the record was broken again and again, and the
Yeah.
year after
Yeah.
that, and the year after that, and the year
Right.
after that. Once it was shown that it could be done,
Once-
the barrier.
Ah, very important
Fell away.
insight, yeah,
It's this power of believing.
yeah.
What is it now?
So it enhances our ability to create wanted visions, to believe, helps to see new possibilities, perseverance, creates determination, strength of will, makes us more resilient, gives us the ability to respond and bounce back from adversity. And then the other is a synergy or a synergistic effect between mind, body, and spirit that allows us to exceed our normal ability. And this is getting in this power of belief, and this is, both of these illustrate this synergistic effect. And I like this little, of course I talk to myself, sometimes I need expert advice. So let's look at one example of the power of belief, and this is the healing power within. I've mentioned this before, we have tremendous healing power within that we don't realize the potential we have. And for years the medical profession ignored the fact that the power of believing can activate the body's defense system, it lowers stress hormones, and reverses disease. And it involves both the spiritual and what's sometimes called a healing energy or energy healing. It involves a spiritual connection and a balance of energy flow through this mind, body, and spirit. This is this balance that I've talked about. And specific examples I'm going to include here just to get, and we'll get some more into this next week. Includes the placebo effect, hypnosis, acupuncture, spontaneous remission, and faith healing. So let's look at placebo. How does the placebo work? The placebo effect is when people get better after a perceived medical procedure. So first of all, they've got a mindset, I hate to use that word, that they're going to expect benefits from a treatment. In this case, it's taking a pill. So when we talk about a placebo, it's a perceived medical treatment, but instead they're given a sugar pill, saline solution, or a sham procedure. So in a sense, they've been, this pill in this case, it's gonna release pain, or reduce pain, and then there's, so when they take the pill, this expectation kicks in and actually releases, specific neurotransmitters, endorphins, or dopamine that, decreases the pain. The placebo is really, important, and it's important in clinical trials, and you can see here, if you just look at two groups, no treatment and treatment, you can see the effects of a procedure. But usually, well, what's required now is that instead of having two groups, a control group and a test group, whether you're taking a pill for hypertension or diabetes, you have to have a third group, what is called the placebo. These folks get the same colored pill, tastes the same as over here, only it's a sugar or it's a sugar pill, what I call a sugar pill. And you can see the placebo effect, and often the placebo effect is, the treatment is not any better than the placebo. So if you've got a big standard of error here, this is where the drug companies pull their hair out, because the placebo is really masking, and most of the times the placebo is just as effective as the treatment. So it's a known entity. How it works, we still don't know.
But you're tricking the mind is really what you're
Well,
Well,
we may be tricking the mind, but there's neurophysiology that goes on, and things kick in.
you're changing the mind.
Yeah,
That's-
it's changing the perception.
You're changing the mind, and also you're changing the actual functioning of the neurochemical makeup, as he showed a couple slides ago, where endorphins and dopamine and other neurotransmitters are affected by what your thoughts, what your beliefs are, your expectations, your imagination. So the expectation of benefit triggers changes in the brain that confer benefit. Is that a trick? Oh, well, it's one that's
Well,
60,000 years old,
yeah,
probably.
and prayer is one of those, and I don't think
Yeah.
that's a trick.
No, yeah.
If you go to the previous slide, I wonder in the clinical trial, did they draw the conclusion that the majority of the improvement by the treatment was due to the expectation to improve? As you can see, that's 5, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you only get 2 additional on top of that from the
Mhm.
actual. So is
Yeah.
the medication only worth 2?
No, that usually it does, that's the problem.
That's what, I wonder if they drew that
And
conclusion.
so
The
they,
medication may not be released.
If you were given
it's
the
smaller than that.
medication
Yeah.
without
And I'm
knowing
trying-
it,
Yeah,
I'm
so
trying
you
to-
had no expectation to improve, would your improvement have only been 2?
Yeah,
That's what I'd
yeah,
love
they
to
don't, they don't get to test that, that's unethical,
Oh.
I believe. in
It is.
You
research
give people
protocols.
medicine without telling
Can't
them.
slip you a Mickey, yeah.
Okay. Well,
and I can't think of the drug company that got sued for
Say that
false
loud.
advertising, because the way they presented the data is what you're talking about, and, without,
Yeah,
and what you gotta really look at is the, sort of the delta between here and here.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
if it's 10%, it's not really, it's not worth a $2,000 pill.
yeah, I've heard inside stories of, and probably you've heard a lot more than I have, Rod, of substances tested that show great promise for benefit in the treatment, no treatment group. But when the trials brought in the placebo effect, not enough difference to go to market with.
Lots of times these kinds of tests are run as crossover tests.
Yes, yes,
So you have two groups of people, one of them getting treatment, one of them getting a placebo, and then they switch. So you get
yes,
statistics involved in here, and if, like you mentioned, if the standard deviation in those two blue and red groups is high enough, there's no statistical difference.
uh-huh,
If
Yes.
if it isn't a big variation, then yes, they're statistically
Yeah.
different.
So I wonder why the medical community has not adopted as an official practice the use of placebo, the prescription of placebos on a regular basis. Since there is no downside to a placebo, whereas there is a downside to most medicines.
Mm.
Well,
Why on earth would you not prescribe it?
you can't make money with the placebo.
You can't make money, okay.
That's a problem, right
There you go.
Yeah, you gotta put something in it to call it something other than a placebo.
Now, the other is power of hypnosis. Sort of the same thing. Hypnosis is sort of a trance. It's a highly focused attention, often associated with relaxation and a heightened suggestibility. Hypnosis has been effective in the treatment of following conditions, pain, especially pain control, burns, cancer, irritable bowel syndrome, headaches and joint pains, behavior changes, smoking, overeating, insomnia, and emotional conditions, anxieties, phobias, post-traumatic stress. It's currently being used quite a bit in this post-traumatic stress. Cancer treatment, it eases the side effect of chemotherapy and radiation therapy. So it's the side effects of hypnosis. And currently there's 2 centers that have been formed. About 2 years ago, University of Michigan set up a center for hypnosis, and the other one is out of Brigham Young Hospital in Boston. So this is getting to be more acceptable by the medical community.
Does anybody know, has hypnosis ever been used to actually treat cancer itself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes?
Rod, that lecture we went to earlier this year, there are certain kinds of cancer that really respond well to the hypnosis.
Yes. And I'm trying to think. I think was it lung cancer?
Hmm.
I think you're
I
right.
think it was.
I'm not sure on
Okay.
The other is acupuncture. This is a form of treatment that involves inserting very thin needles through the person's skin at specific points at various depths. A key component of this traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, is commonly used to treat pain, again, low back, mainly pain, osteoarthritis, knee pain, headaches, and migraine. Increasingly, it's being used for overall wellness. Again, how acupuncture works scientifically remains unclear. Some claim it's a balance of vital energy flow between the mind, body, and spirit, while others believe this is a neurological effect. And again, the verdict's not in, but it's, again, the power of the mind is involved with this.
But acupuncture is not being accepted by the medical
No,
field. Certainly
well,
isn't
it's
being
holistic medicine does, but the traditional medical community, the answer is no.
and neither does the insurance industry.
That's right, a lot of insurance does not.
There is some increasing inclusion of acupuncture, hypnosis, and other non-traditional treatments by some insurance plans. Even Medicare, as some of the recent reading I'm doing, where there's alternative treatment for specific condition where
Yeah,
there's
low
been
back
shown to
pain
be
is one,
effective.
I think, neck pain, I don't think they do the osteoarthritis, knee
Yeah.
pain.
You know,
Headaches and migraines is another that seems to be
Yeah.
fairly effective.
my husband has had acupuncture recently, and he thinks it really helped. And he told his doctor, his internist, about it, and the internist was very accepting of it and
Mhm.
saying, yeah, it's being used more and more.
Yeah. The other is a spontaneous remission. And this is works through the body's power of believing, spontaneous healing, sometimes that's what it's called, can be defined as a partial, complete disappearance of disease or tumor in the absence of any treatment or therapy. Here's a brain scan with a benign or a malignant tumor, and over a period of several months, you can see this has disappeared, and again, this patient did not participate in any treatment. It was again this spontaneous remission. It's been noted in breast cancer. It's been noted in heart diseases. The problem is it's not reproducible. It works for some people that have a brain tumor, and it doesn't work for others, and it can't be reproduced, and this is what drives the medical community up the wall, because it can't be reproduced, and so it's hard to substantiate how it's working when it does sometimes and doesn't the other times.
And I think the danger, at least for me, when you talk about this, is through the body's power of believing, is that if my tumor doesn't disappear, then I didn't believe hard enough.
Yeah,
And that really has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
that's right.
But
Yeah.
See,
that's
this is,
something
it's
that,
very dangerous. I mean,
Yes.
it's
if I'd only believed better,
or you're not praying hard enough.
exactly.
Right.
And it's, so it's, but it is documented that it does work in some patients.
Well, what you're talking about, what is documented is without treatment, an untreatable condition reverses.
Right.
Which is to say, the body must have that capacity. So, attributing it to the power of belief is one theory. Attributing it to eating oat bran on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and every other Friday is another theory. And so there are infinite number of theories about what is it that's working here. I would say it is body, mind, and spirit at work producing a restoration, a preservation of the integrity of the organism, the person.
And I think
that's what the life force does as God's gift to us.
To me, I would have used the word happens.
Yeah,
That happened.
yeah, that happens.
We don't know the
Why?
between A and C.
Well, I know why. My faith tells me that God is the source of life, and that something of God's life-giving presence was released to preserve the integrity
But
of
what
this
Ann said
life.
plays in here.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen, then that means that my belief in God is not
No, it
big enough,
doesn't.
strong enough, or whatever else you're
Only if
saying.
I believe that it's my belief that made it happen, and that's not what I believe. Our belief doesn't make anything happen. And that's the danger of trusting the importance of believing. My belief puts myself in the way and an expectation of what can only be given as a gift, life itself.
So why pray?
God doesn't love us because we believe in God.
So why pray?
I don't know. To trust. If prayer does not lead you to trust and to a lessening of the anxiety that causes inflammation in your body, I would say, I don't know, try going without it.
We're talking about relationship.
Yeah, but trust is the dynamic that's necessary to friendship, and the essential, the deepest ingredient of relationship with God, of
And
faith.
if it's just,
Faith is trust.
if it's just my belief and my words, then there's not gonna be
but I have control over my beliefs and my words, and I like to live like most humans do with the illusion of control. That if I believe the right thing, God's going to treat me better than those other blokes.
And if he doesn't,
Yeah.
then what?
Well, then I'm disappointed.
Right.
Then I'm confronted with the reality that God's grace is God's sovereign power, not conditional upon my belief.
Well, the other thing is the medical, that we have different kind of tumors, and it's clear that some
Yeah.
are responsive better to some tumors than others. And it's, so it hasn't gotten all worked out. Well, the other one is faith healing, and this is another one that it's hard to explain and it's hard to reproduce because it works on some and not others. But again, it's been documented. And what is faith healing? It's a practice of prayer and or the laying on of hands to elicit a physical healing through divine intervention. I think that's what I gleaned about faith healing. It's part of holistic medicine. Now this laying of hands is a religious practice that's been used for both symbolic and a formal method of invoking the Holy Spirit. And in Christian churches, it's used for baptism, confirmation, blessings, ordination, and then it's also, we get into this laying of hands invokes the Holy Spirit during healing services. Again, from a scientific perspective, faith healing is unexplained, incomprehensible, and shouldn't work. And it does. I mean,
What kind of statement is should not work? Is that a scientific statement? What's a
no,
scientist saying should for?
I don't know. And the same is true for the placebo effect. So all these are, it's hard to
Yeah.
get our hands around what's going on.
Well, if science is about a demonstrable connection, establishing a demonstrable connection between cause and effect, then necessarily anything we cannot, as you said earlier, is not reproducible. That is, we cannot reproduce it by our own, by rational methods or means, then it lacks scientific validity, because science means we have to control both the inputs and the outcome.
Yeah.
So we can say alongside science comes faith and a whole lot of what Carl Jung talked about as the in-between, the spiritual realm, the soul, the depth dimension, where that transcends human understanding. And perhaps the important distinction, as I look at it, as we grow older, and I think this is an issue in aging, in that we're trying to account for, and that's part of what I hear you saying, Ann, we're trying to account for, well, if God provides healing, then what must I have done wrong if I haven't been healed of whatever I haven't been healed of? And we all haven't been healed of something in this life. Our mortality, none of us have been healed from so far. Our human physical mortality. The important distinction, it seems to me, is between materialism, that is, the only valid accounting for events that take place in the physical realm. It must lie within the material realm. We've got to account for it based on the atoms and the molecules and the physical principles and the chemical valences and the electrical, what we know about the electrical effect on all of that, in order for it to be a valid outcome. So if we say as the Christian faith tends to, trusting more places you in the way of God's grace. Grace cannot be obtained, and it cannot be imposed. It can only be received in trust. If Calvin could have been that concise, I think that's the way he would have said it. Don't you, Don? That really, I'm sorry.
No, that's,
I'm kidding.
no, that's good.
Yeah. So that takes into account that as we come to recognize the limits of our willing things to be right and good and true according to our own human understandings, the development of our capacity for wonder and awe and gratitude and recognition that it's not about what I haven't been healed of, it is about what these 73 years of unmerited gift of life have given me, that have been beyond any comprehension that I can accumulate. I can't claim it or account for it. I can only say thank you, Lord, for this life, all of it, and especially for bringing me through the cancer and the heart disease and the near misses and the foolishness that could have cost me and others my life. Thank you, God. Who am I not to trust you with whatever the course of my life might bring in terms of challenges or of disappointments or of unexpected gifts yet to come.
I sometimes think about neutrality, because unless we put ourselves in a neutral
A
zone.
neutral zone, yeah.
What was your question?
I didn't have a question. I said I sometimes think about being neutral.
Oh,
Neutral.
That you have to put yourself in a neutral zone.
Yeah.
Because if you think about when God talks about even the sparrow, you know, he takes care of the sparrow in
Mhm.
the field. You know, our repeated prayers of please cure me or please help me with this. He already knows that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you're developing your faith, gratitude, you know, expressing that gratitude that he's already got it planned and he already knows
Yeah.
what you need.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be the beggar, you want to be the grateful. And
Mhm.
when you're the grateful and you're neutral,
Yeah.
then you're open for God's plan.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
And the neutrality in terms of not trying to steer or determine the outcome, maybe one form of that.
And my hardest thing is, you know, reminding myself God never gives you more than you can handle.
Mhm.
But boy, you question that some days.
Yeah, yeah. Can we have a conversation about that? Yeah.
Yes, it's
yeah,
a little
right.
harder to stay neutral
right.
when you're having a pity party.
That's
but
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, there's a book out that's, I think they did, it's written about 3 years ago by Eric Metaxas. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a Yale graduate, journalism. Started out as an atheist, but he's pretty devout Christian. He taught,
Yeah, he,
he talks about miracles, what they are, why they happen. And if you read the book, it just blows your mind. But he's documented these episodes, and
Yeah, I noticed.
Eric's pretty well respected in terms of his research. So
he wrote the book about Witherspoon, not Witherspoon, but the British legislator who got the legislation in Great Britain to end slavery.
Uh-huh.
Something. And also wonderful biography of Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Right.
Yeah. He's a very
But
good writer.
it's an interesting read, but it just blows your mind with some of the things that he cited. So we've talked, and this is sort of setting the stage for next week about our spirituality and how this really gets plugged into these, because we're looking at specific things here. The other thing is this importance of nurturing. We talk about the healing power within. Essential ingredient or component of this is love. There is a quote by Bernie Siegel, who was a surgeon, a Yale graduate. He's retired now, but he says within each of us is a spark, called a divine spark, if you will, but it's there and can light the way to health. There are no incurable diseases, only incurable people. So but he talks a lot about this this essential ingredient of love in the healing process. And a key component of this is love is nurturing. Involves caring, supportive, and encouraging attitude, and it also it sort of gets the importance of the healing power of touch. And you know, today's fast-paced society, technology-driven world, to forget how important touch is in our everyday relationships as well-being. And the skin is our largest sensory organ, and touch again sends signals to the brain that builds trust and makes us feel confirmed. So it's part of this is this importance of being touched. Hugs, how hugs change the brain is the same thing. Nurturing also includes hugging, cuddling, snuggling, holding hands. Hug sends a signal to the brain, and the feedback tells us that we are valued and loved, and also trusted. We have trust. Now, when I was working on this, my wife, out of the blue, told me that she had to have 13 hugs a day, and I about fell off my chair. I said, "Where did you get this?" Out of a Dear Abby column. And so when I did some digging, as usual, she was right. According to the experts, we need 4 hugs a day for survival, 8 hugs a day for maintenance, and 12 hugs a day to thrive. And again, it's the importance of touch and being confirmed. And so, you know, so then I started getting analytical. Well, if you can't do 13 hugs a day, is there any substitutes like holding hands, or you know, or even love pats? And she said, "No, I've got to have 13 hugs a day."
This is a church, doctor.
Well, it's important. So when we look at the healing power and the importance of touch, we're getting into this next phase, is what makes us happy. So it's how to have happiness in life. Well, again, probably no surprise, happiness is a choice. If you look at the research, it shows that 20% of happiness is determined by our genetics. It's just our genetic makeup. 10% is determined by our circumstances, finances, health, living situation, etc. And the other 70% is based on the freedom to choose. It's our own intentional efforts to become happier, meaning we have a big say in how we feel. And again, a lot of these studies were done on identical twins. Where you got identical twins, you get this 20%, and when they get separated and live different communities, there's a difference in the level of happiness, and it's not due to genetics. So it's, again, it's where this happiness is a choice. So what is happiness anyway? So what do we, if we have to put a definition on this? Happiness relates to how we feel, but it's more than a pleasurable feeling or a passing mood. It's a deep sense of flourishing and or contentment. It's directly related to an appreciation and how satisfied we are about life. So it's appreciation of life and how satisfied we are about life. And it's a combination of satisfaction, in other words, your well-being, and the action of your day-to-day basis, interaction on a day-to-day basis, the choices, activities, and your choice of friends. Again, friendship is important and happiness. You gotta have friends that bring out the best in you, not the stress in you.
Just a couple of thoughts related to this flow. First of all, I remember the numerous places I've been, India, East Africa, West Africa, South Africa, and in different urban settings in the even rural settings in the U.S., where it's very clear to me that I wouldn't be happy living here.
Yeah.
But to look around me, people are really happy here. In fact, exuberant joy in situations where poverty and the odors in the air and the living conditions suggest desperation and deprivation. And there's disease and not so much hunger. In places where hunger is rampant, there's not much happiness, not much capacity for it. But what are the things that are truly essential to happiness? And then a second thought or question is, are we making real happiness, what we sometimes call joy or contentment, are we putting it at risk with the younger generations in our society by imitating it or providing shortcuts of various kinds to the sensation of happiness, artificial happiness? Substance abuse is certainly the seeking a shortcut to the feeling of happiness. So is a lot of risk-taking behavior, like swinging on tires out over the abyss. But the extreme forms of risk-taking that young people find so exhilarating for obvious reasons. It releases all kinds of feelings that imitate happiness. And maybe the word satisfied there, satisfaction is something I reflect on.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with the variety and the texture of my life. That's a different kind of happiness than
And just a pleasure.
pleasure seeking. Yeah.
The older I get, the happier I am with my life satisfaction that is very, it's not regulated, but it's predictable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We live at Hoosier Village, as you know.
Yeah.
And I don't like my life to be upset now, or my routine to be upset now. And I'm happy with that, you know.
Yeah, the comfortable routines that we find for ourselves are certainly a part of that, including the variety that we build into the routine, the once a week break in traditions.
Some human beings are completely the opposite.
Yeah.
If they have too much routine, they get bored,
Yeah.
right? They need disruption, they need change, they need
And,
variety.
and is that the real question in the therapeutic community is, at what point is that attributable to disorder or inability to pay attention for very long?
And isn't
But,
that,
yeah, it's energy. Yeah, we've got to do something with that energy to keep going and discovering and innovating.
and isn't that tendency increasing?
The restlessness.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like with generations maybe. I mean, there's more, it just seems like there really is more of it.
I would agree. I think even raising my kids, I
Mhm.
saw in them that
Yeah,
there was a continuous need to entertain.
yeah.
I need something to do.
Yeah.
Well, we really need happiness.
Yeah.
So why does happiness matter? I really think happiness helps us to become the best version of ourselves. That it's part of the essential, expressing the joys of life. Benefits, happiness is key to our well-being and quality of life. Research shows that it makes us healthier, more productive, and nicer. Even goats like happy people. And there's a review of more than 160 different studies. This is sort of a summary of these studies, and they found clear and compelling evidence that happier people have have better overall health. Lowers the stress, reduces heart disease, and prevents dementia. I think it allows more social interaction and more activity, improves longevity. Not only do we live longer, but our quality of life is also improved, and we're more productive. So happiness does matter. So what makes us happy? What I try to do here is look at the latest findings and sort of look at areas that made a significant difference in people's happiness. In other words, rather than on a scale of 1 to 10, these studies looked at what areas that people focus in on. So these are the highlights of the most important things that they, focal points. And one is they connected with others and expressing their heart. Relationship is one of the most important things for happiness. The other is cultivate kindness, care for others. Studies show that people care for others or bases are happier. This is importance of volunteering, getting involved in community activities. We talked about finding your purpose. People who are deeply involved in rewarding activities experience a deep sense of satisfaction and self-worth. If you look at the other three important things, these focal points that people showed that they were happier, they learned to be thankful, they showed treasured gratitude. Gratitude helps us to connect with something larger than ourselves, whether it's other people, nature, or to a higher power. The other of these folks stayed on the learning curve. They stayed mentally active, and learning doesn't stop when you hit the big 5-0. It's just as important as we get older. And I think this is the other thing, the gift of life, is that we continue to grow, and it's up to us to plug into that. The last one is embrace the connection between the mind, body, and spirit. Again, this is balance. So happiness is a choice that has to be cultivated. If you want to nurture happy optimism, individuals who choose to be happy, we've sort of gone through this, more accepting themselves, less anxiety, have a better relationship with others, more empathy, and have more gratitude.
So to Rex's point, when he was talking about children, always needing something to do you think it's noteworthy to say there's a huge difference between entertainment and inward happiness?
External stimulation.
Yeah, I think just those the word that comes to mind to juxtapose with entertainment is contentment. being comfortable within, as opposed to being stimulated and not just given pleasure, but given stimulus and having imagination stirred from without. And maybe balance is the key word there. And kids just have to learn, how do we balance the benefits of active pursuit of the novel and the concentration upon the pedantic, the tedious even.
Not because adults.
Yes, oh, very much, yeah.
The other is this, I think, you know, if you look at social entertainment, I mean, sports, playing games with other folks, I think that's could lead. But I think the one you run into trouble is this social media where you get isolated and you're still getting entertainment, but it's not building on it's not going to nurture our optimism, I don't think.
Nurture our optimism.
I'm sorry?
It's not gonna nurture our optimism.
Social media?
I like that
Yeah,
phrase.
nurture our optimism, yeah.
Okay. We can summarize. We talked about the mind, how the mind can heal the body, the power of the mind. And we talked about how our life experiences, how thoughts and feelings and beliefs are intimately involved in our life experiences. We looked at the power of belief. And we looked at the interaction between our thoughts, beliefs, feelings, and actions, and how they either feed on themselves both positively as well as negatively. And then we looked at this healing part within that involves a spiritual component and a balance of what I call the energy between the mind, body, and spirit. Talked about the placebo. It's just one example. We talked the importance of love in the healing process and the importance of nurturing, importance of hugs. We didn't get into love pats here. And, you know, just summarize, happiness is an inside job. Happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Again, it's just how we think about and approach things is important in nurturing our happiness. So, with that, we can answer most of the questions here. Next week we'll I'm sort of building this, and next week we'll get into our spirituality, and I'm going to talk more about the importance of this trust.
But it isn't next week, it's just 2 weeks.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
after Thanksgiving.
It'll be
20s.
It'll be 3 weeks from tonight,
Wednesday.
the 28th.
28th.
So it is the 28th, because you had said the 29th.
Yeah, the 29th was just a typo on my,
Oh, I thought,
a brain.
No, it's the 20, it's that Wednesday night.
okay.
Yeah,
not Thursday
Wednesday
night.
the 28th.
Wednesday after Thanksgiving.
So we probably need to send out another
Yes.
notice after
Well,
Thanksgiving.
What, the most recent notice said the 29th?
No, it was the schedule you sent me.
Yeah,
That's
You know,
yeah, back at the
One
first.
time you said Thursday the 29th, was the only one, whatever.
Oh,
Well, a
no,
few weeks back.
yeah, it's Wednesday the 28th, yeah, I had,
Yes, that's 29.
I guess I had,
I thought Bill Enright was gonna do something.
He's doing
on
December.
December
The
5th.
last one
Oh,
is
the last
December the
one. Yeah.
5th, the following Wednesday, December the 5th, Bill Enright's gonna talk about gratitude and generosity.
Yeah, December 5th. Yeah. And I think Bill will be here for our next
Yeah, he had a
next two
comment, again,
classes.
Do we meet next week?
No, not for 2 weeks. After Thanksgiving, Wednesday after Thanksgiving is our next.
We're gone for a couple of days that week.
Okay, yeah, we'll miss you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, but come back for the 5th if you can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll be active.
What, will you explain that, come back for a fifth? I didn't understand.
Do I have to explain that to you after all
Not
these years?
me, you don't have to.
Well, thanks,
thanks again.
and, we'll see you all, I hope, all but a few in 3 weeks. Thank you, Rod.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It was originally scheduled.
All right.
Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Nope.
Do you live in